Okay, so a lot of people, they ask me what the deal is with the accent marks, whether they be a native speaker, a heritage speaker, or someone that's just brand new to the language. At a certain point, they're going to recognize that there's these little accent marks, just moving to the right, and they want to know what the deal is, how those work. So I'm going to explain to you in this video how to place accent marks in Spanish, that is when they're needed, when they're not needed, and what they look like and stuff like that. So I have the 3 rules here. It's very simple, specifically because rules 1 and 2 are complementary to each other, and then rule 3 is sort of like a check for words that don't fall into these 2 categories. But before I can hit you with those 3 rules, I need to clarify a couple of other things, because otherwise I'm going to get into this description and there's going to be things you're not going to understand along the way. So the first thing is that this all has to deal with syllables. Okay, so you know that a word is composed of multiple sounds, in writing composed of multiple letters, and all the letters represent these sounds. So you can think of a syllable essentially as a unit, okay, a unit of sound, and words are typically made up of at least 1 syllable and a couple, usually 2, 3, 4. This is a really intuitive thing. I don't have a good scientific definition of a syllable, and even if I gave you like an actual linguistic definition, it would just serve to confuse, and that's beside the point. So the way you can think about this the best, I think, is just when you sound words out, the process of sounding out usually goes along the lines of syllables. So, when little kids are learning, let's say you have this right here, they'd be like singing from the well. In this case, you have 3 words that only have 1 syllable. That's called monosyllabic, when there's just 1 syllable. And then the next one is singing. It's got 2 syllables, singing. And that would be a polysyllabic word. Poly means more than 1, right? Okay, so sounding things out, if you need another visual thing, you can think of like when you see in commercials or movies or whatever, there's like a song and they're singing along. There's a little dot that bounces. That dot bounces from syllables, right? Furthermore, if you've ever done the school project of making a haiku, you know that a haiku is based in a syllable format. I think it's 575. I haven't done that in a long time. But regardless, counting syllables is a fairly intuitive process. We just call it sounding out in everyday speech, okay? But you need to know where the syllables are, because when I explain to you how the stress works in the accent marks, I'm going to be referring to syllables by their distance from the end. I'm going to say the last syllable or the penultimate syllable, which means second to last, and then I could say third to last. In Spanish, these terms would be última, penúltima, and antepenúltima would be third to last on that last one, okay? So the word syllable has 3 syllables, right? The word teacher has 2 syllables. So a word that only has 1 syllable, in this case I just wrote the word let me back up for a second actually. What I mean to say is that words are divided into syllables, but only one of the syllables in the word will have stress. Stress is sort of like the heaviest, the most, it is the most emphatic, it's the most emphasized, I should say, sound in a word. I like to think of it as the heaviest syllable in a word, the part that has the most weight. Sort of like the part that determines the correct or incorrect pronunciation of it. So for example, in English, all languages, well, let me walk that back. English for sure, and Spanish, all words have stress. So if I get a word like photo, which actually is a great example because it'll transfer to Spanish. But the word photo has 2 syllables, photo. But if you pronounce the word, you can make a choice. You never would do this, especially if you're a native English speaker, but you could pronounce it photo, the correct way, or you could say photo, okay? Photo. Obviously, you would never say photo. It doesn't even sound like photo. And that's really part of this. You know from your experience living and all that the way that the word is pronounced is photo. It's important that you understand that all of the words that I'm going to talk about were words before they were written down, okay? So these accent marks and all of this is really a rationalization of the way that people spoke, right? And then later there's influence, it goes both ways, blah, blah, blah. The point is that you know from everyday life that it's photo, right? And not photo. You can do this with your own name. I like to do it all the time because people mispronounce my name all the time. So my name is Yoan. It's got 2 syllables, Yo-an. The stress falls on the second syllable, which means the last syllable in this case, Yoan, Yoan. But many people call me Yoan, Yoan. They put the stress on the first syllable. It's okay, I basically made peace with it. I correct people once or twice, and then I'm just like, that's a lost cause. But it's important to be able to know how to pronounce words properly, especially people's names, I would think. But bueno. So let's do another one, glasses. How many syllables are there? There's 2. Glasses, glasses. Even if you can't distinguish them perfectly, like where the border is, you know that the syllables are really anchored in the vowels. Glasses, glasses. And you know, just like the word photo, that the stress is on the second to last. Glasses, as opposed to glasses, glasses. The stress is important furthermore because you get some words that it changes the meaning of the word if you use a stress in a different place. So you get the word project in English, project, that's a noun, that's a thing. I have a project for school. If you move the stress to the second syllable, by which I mean the last syllable, is project. Project is a verb, as in I need to project my voice so the microphone will pick me up because I don't have a little fancy clip mic or whatever. A valuable tool indeed. So the reason I'm pointing this out, the difference between a word that has 1 syllable and more than 1 syllable, is because if your word only has 1 syllable, the stress can only be in one place. So if in English, for example, in the word the, there's no way to confuse the stress in the word the because you can only stress it one way, the. But if you get a word like theory, 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 there's multiple spots where you could put the stress. If you get a word like door, you're good. Door is 1 syllable. If you get a word like window, now you have 2 spaces, window. So you could put the stress over win, or you could put it over do. Of course, if you're a native speaker, or you're just listening to the way native people speak, you would hear window. You would hear it on the second to last syllable, the first syllable in this case, window. Okay, so I think that makes the point here. The examples I wrote were just a and aquí, okay? So now that you understand that a word is broken into syllables, or rather that it can be broken into syllables, the point that follows is that one of those syllables will have the stress. You should practice this in English. Just look around you, and if you know, okay, a book. Book, you say, book has 1 syllable, there's only one way to pronounce it in terms of stress. Book. Okay. But you keep looking around and you get candle. Now you say, okay, now there's 2 syllables, candle. So where am I putting the stress? And the way you figure that out, if you're really unfamiliar with this, is by putting the stress on each syllable. And the one that sounds right is your answer. So you have candle, candle, candle. Obviously that's the right way to say it. But this will become more clear when you say candle, candle. When you put it in the wrong place, it'll become obvious that it's the wrong place. The same thing is true in Spanish. All the words you could possibly use are going to have a stress somewhere in there. And if it's a monosyllabic word, meaning it has 1 syllable, again, it's much easier, you don't have to worry about it. Words like que, words like a, words like me, stuff like that, there's only one way to emphasize, to stress those. But once you come into words that have more than 1 syllable, now you have to know a little bit more. And again, this is all like remarkably intuitive. If you just listen to the way people speak and copy them, you'll end up speaking correctly for the most part. So this is really important for like writing and reading, so that you know how to pronounce a word you've never seen before, and so that when you write, you don't write the wrong word, something like that. After I go through these rules, I'm going to talk about diacríticos, diacritical accents, which we'll come to at the end, right? But right now, let's shift to this.